All right, everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's been a while since I've done a live stream. Narcolepsy Boy 94 here, aka Malik. We're talking some old school WWE wrestling, WCW wrestling today with you guys. As always, I have special guests on the podcast, some familiar faces you might have seen. I'll let my guests introduce themselves. Excuse me, and then we'll dive into some topics, into some conversations. If you guys want to interact in the comment section, feel free to interact as well. We'll start with Alan. Alan, you can go first.
All right, what's going on, Alan? aka Pettyendo89. You can catch me on TikTok, Pettyendo89 at TikTok. Here to talk about one of my specialties, old school wrestling. Let's get it.
And it's your boy Kyron Chase. I'm back. Just ready to get started. You know me, I might be the youngest person here, but I know a lot of old school wrestling, so this will be fun.
See the comment section. That one didn't work. I don't know why that didn't send, but anyway, so we've been just to brief you guys, me and Alan a couple of days ago, maybe about a week ago, I don't know how long it was, but we were talking some old school wrestling stuff, brainstorming ideas and giving our opinions on certain things. And I thought we'd be interested to bring it to the podcast, see what everybody else thinks. Everybody, I think, has different conversations, different topics when it comes to different genres of wrestling. I know Alan is from the old school era that we were talking about. We're talking like Golden Age, New Generation era, stuff like that. I gotta dive into some of the old school WrestleManias. I have to know, why is WrestleMania 9 your favorite WrestleMania? It's one of the worst WrestleManias ever.
Wait, what?
Don't understand how that's your favorite WrestleMania.
He's talking to me. Okay. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I just duetted Alex, he ranked the worst. Basically, why it's my favorite is it's because it's my first. Literally, it's probably the WrestleMania that I've watched more than any. It's what got me into wrestling. I know it was bad. It had its reasons for being bad, if you know about the previous year, but it's always the one that I go back to. And despite popular belief, it's not the worst WrestleMania of all time. The worst WrestleMania of all time is WrestleMania 11, not 9.
That's up for debate because to me, the unholy trilogy I like to call for WrestleManias are 2, 9, and 11. Like it's actually a debate on which one I think is the worst between the three of them. So we can probably get on that later. But I can never say WrestleMania 9 is a good show. I mean, you just said it was bad, but I understand you have nostalgia bias towards it. But yeah, WrestleMania 9 is one of the worst WrestleManias they've ever put out.
Oh, I agree. I have it in my personal list. I have it third worst.
It's just your favorite because that's the first one you saw, or it's
just the one that I've always watched. I've always referenced. When I started photoshopping, I would always Photoshop with the old Bret Yokozuna still photo. I was gonna try to get Hal Haney to do the artwork for me, but unfortunately, he's not taking any submissions right now because it's going close to WrestleMania. But it's just, I can't really explain it. It's just always been that WrestleMania that's just my personal favorite.
WrestleMania 9, though. I mean, I can't think of anything memorable about WrestleMania 9 that was great, to be honest. Like, it's always the bad stuff about WrestleMania 9. I've never seen the full show from start to finish, but I know the important stuff about the show that were just bad. Like, I've never heard anyone get none.
Well, let me give you a tip, Malik. If you're ever going to go on Peacock and watch WrestleMania 9, I highly recommend you don't. But watch Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka, and then watch the Head Shrinkers versus the Brain Busters. And then after that, not the Brain Busters, I'm sorry, the Steiner Brothers. Steiner Brothers, I apologize. And then turn the show off. So after you watch Shawn and Tatanka, watch Head Shrinkers and Steiners, and then turn the show off.
I've seen Shawn Tatanka, but like I said, the most of the things that people reference talk about was like Undertaker, Johnny Gonzalez, which was terrible. And then the main event, which was also terrible. So
okay, now let me get into that. That Undertaker Johnny Gonzalez match was awful. Both of them were, that and SummerSlam 93. But I'm going to stand on this. This may be a hot take. The Undertaker Johnny Gonzalez feud, to me, was one of the most pivotal in the Undertaker's career. And here's why. If you take a hard look at everybody that he feuded with up until him, Warrior, former WWF champion, He beat Hulk Hogan for the championship. He then feuded with Jake Roberts and then Kamala. So these are 4 guys that were either top of the card or damn near top of the card at one time. The story of Giant Gonzalez was actually really good. It's just the matches were god awful, terrible. But it showed that the Undertaker could still have a good story with somebody that wasn't at the top of the card.
Well, Undertaker's storytelling is going to carry though because of his character work. I feel like his character is so unique. So obviously people are invested into the character. Nobody cares about Giant Gonzalez. You know, he's just a big tall guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but
I mean, overall though, like I said, WrestleMania 9 is definitely one of the worst for sure. I don't know if I would say it's the worst of that era though, because there are some other bad ones. Like say WrestleMania 2 is pretty bad. WrestleMania 11, like you brought up, was pretty bad. I feel like most of those WrestleManias too just have either great matches or great moments in between those WrestleManias. Like it's very hard for me to watch a WrestleMania from start to finish that was like a perfect show. You know what I mean? Like every match was either a good match or every moment was a good moment. Like most of those WrestleManias I feel like have bad moments, bad matches, but some of them also have good moments and good matches throughout the show that make up for those bad moments and bad matches. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it plays hand in hand. Like obviously WrestleMania 1, it's WrestleMania 1, you know, it's the first one they ever did. You know what I mean? So that's like, I don't really critique that one just because it's like if that one didn't succeed, then there would never been a WrestleMania again. So that was just the first one they ever did. But 2 was terrible. 3 had 2 things people talk about, obviously Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat, and then Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan, which changed the game. WrestleMania
Andre.
Oh yeah, versus Andre, and then the WrestleMania tournament, which was WrestleMania 4, which was cool, and then that set up the Mega Power feud for WrestleMania 5, which was cool. WrestleMania 6 was the Warrior versus Hogan, and then WrestleMania 7 was they had Macho Man and Warrior, and then you had Hogan and Slaughter when he was the heel and shit. So there were some good things in between those times. And then WrestleMania 8, which was also bad too, but they should have did Hogan versus Flair that year, but they did.
I have a theory about that, about why we didn't have a why we didn't have a
Hogan
Flair match. Here's my thoughts, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong. At the beginning of that year, there was a story, I believe it was Insider Edition, that painted the WWF really bad in the lights of steroid trial. This is kind of how the steroid trial started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not too long after that, Hulk Hogan was slated to go shoot a movie called Mr. Nanny, which is why he left. I personally believe that was done on purpose so they could get him out of the limelight. If you have him face Flair at WrestleMania, you either have Hogan win the title back, which makes no sense because they're trying to get him out of the way, or you have Flair beat him, and that would be the first heel to win a title match at WrestleMania, which Vince wasn't going for. I don't buy this whole thing that they weren't drawing at the Omnis and stuff like that. That's BS. You put Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair in a main event in 1992 in the WWF, people are going to show up. I don't.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't buy that whole. So I honestly think they needed to get Hogan out of the way. So then there was no viable option that Vince was going to be cool with, because you can't have Flair win, and then you can't have Hogan win the title for the 5th time, because what's he going to do with it? He's already leaving.
Well, here's my thoughts on that. I agree the steroid trial had something to do with it. There's no doubt in my mind about that. They can bring up the fact that Hogan Flair wasn't drawing on house shows. I mean, I couldn't care less. They were the 2 biggest names in wrestling at the time. WrestleMania is right around the corner. You got to do that match. I mean, why would you have Flair cost Hogan the title Survivor Series, have Flair win the title of the Rumble, and not do Flair Hogan? With that being said, listen to me personally. I'm not necessarily mad about it because Savage versus Flair is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches. So I'm not necessarily wrong about it, mad about it. But I will say this. Let's say WWE Vince didn't want to put the title on Hogan because of the steroid controversy. You still put Hogan in the main event. You still built the show around Hogan. You might as well just done Hogan and Flair. I mean, and you can say, well, Hogan had to be out. They weren't running Raw yet. They weren't really doing a lot of weekly shows. So it's not like Hogan would have really been there all the time anyway. I would have still done Hogan and Flair. Granted, I'm not mad because I got one of my favorite WrestleMania matches because of it. But still, in my opinion, there are 2 matches Vince is always going to be upset he didn't run when he had a chance. Hogan Flair and Hogan Austin. Those are the 2 matches, especially because WrestleMania was around the corner both times. Those are the two matches I'm pretty sure Vince is most upset he never did.
To be fair, though, Hogan Flair definitely, I think, should have happened. I mean, especially around that time. Hogan and Austin, I think, possibly could have been the bigger match. But to be fair, if you look around that time frame when they did Hogan versus The Rock was the bigger star at that time. I feel like he was the most over star at that time. And they still were building him towards the future because they didn't know he was going to leave really yet for Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? They probably didn't know he was ready to leave. And like I said, if you go back in 2002, The Rock was the bigger star. He was more over than Austin at that time frame. So and they were probably looking at Rock is younger. He's going to have more longevity. Hogan comes back, puts this guy over. The Rock is going to help. I mean, The Rock was already The Rock, but that really helped push The Rock up to, like, he felt like, you know, up on the upper echelon, you know what I mean? So I don't really blame him for doing Austin Hogan, because that's a really tough one right there. I mean, that's a big 50-50 you have to do right there. And Rock and Hogan is one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time, too. So it's not like they missed out on that either. But I got to ask you, I'm gonna allow you to do your Bret Hart defense right now, because I know you you and I be talking about this Bret Hart. Well, we have the Bret Hart conversation a lot, but I'll let you take it away.
So when I stitched your video that went viral last year, it was I think the question was like, what's a wrestling opinion I stand on? And I rifled off a bunch, but the first one I said is I think that Bret Hart is the most important superstar in WWE history post Hulk Hogan. What I mean by that is this. When Hogan was leaving, literally everything was being shifted. A lot of the big stars were either going to other territories or they were leaving the business entirely. They were shifting it down. Bret was basically the catalyst for this new generation of wrestling within the WWE, where now all of a sudden, instead of picking on big stars, you actually now are starting to build up stars that necessarily wouldn't have worked in the previous era. So Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Yokozuna, Diesel, being willing to actually have pay-per-view matches and actually help build these guys' storylines, because that's not something Hogan would have done if he didn't feel they were big enough. Subsequently, around that same time, and this is probably a smaller part of it, he introduced the ladder matches, because he did not know, they didn't know if SummerSlam 92 was going to be in England or if it was going to be in Washington. If it was going to be in Washington, it was supposed to be him and Shawn in a ladder match for the title. If not, it was going to be what we all know to be Bulldog and Bret at Wembley Stadium. The ladder matches, as we all know, are one of the biggest catalysts in WWE history. I mean, we have 2 pay-per-views based off of them, TLC and then Money in the Bank. So I say all of that to say that, and then the biggest thing is he's not only responsible for the comeuppance of the Steve Austin, but also the recruiting of Steve Austin. We have no Attitude Era without Steve Austin. So, and if we have no Attitude Era, we have no new, what do they call it? What's the era after that? The Ruthless Aggression in some form. So I get it. Terrible promo, was not very good on the mic. There were certain things, a lot of people look at him as a crybaby, but him being that piece at that time was so important because it connected so many puzzle pieces to where we are today. Without him, we don't have a lot of the things that we have today. People don't have to like him. I understand that. I respect that. But I find him to be the most important.
The question is for you right here. What if Bret was the most important WWE superstar in history? Can't you push for Dusty to be up there with him?
So, no, because Dusty was put in a different position. Let's be honest. Dusty Rhodes might have been one of the most disrespected superstars in the history of WWE. Like, Vince literally did not respect him. I mean, anybody who understands Virgil, Ted DiBiase's manager, Virgil was Dusty Rhodes' real name. You know, so I don't think it would have worked quite that way. But shout out to Dusty, God rest his soul. He deserved a hell of a lot more respect. And as I understand it, because you guys know I'm not big on NXT, he was the first real pusher of the NXT brand, right?
Yeah, He was the coach of the. Well, Triple H was the one behind the brand, but Dusty was like the coach behind the scenes, like helping everybody with their characters and making stars. You know what I mean? Like saw the potential in a lot of the people up there. So the thing with Bret, I mean, all the arguments that you brought up they're not crazy. I mean, all the ones that you said are true. The most important superstar after Hogan, maybe. I don't know about past through the other eras. I do feel like him and Shawn definitely carried the new generation era, which is probably the worst era in WWE.
I do think you got, if you want to throw a new generation, he was saddled with a lot of crappy storylines and opponents. But Undertaker was also, I think you can't not bring up the Undertaker. If you ask me, those were the three most important of the new generation: Shawn, Bret, and the Undertaker.
You could throw Taker's hat in there too. I mean, Undertaker's always Undertaker, so I mean, he was important. He was important to every era, I feel like. But the faces were Shawn and Bret between those eras. I mean, those were the two guys that they pushed in the top spot as the champions most of the time. Diesel was thrown in there, the once, and then obviously Razor was another.
We'll get into that.
Diesel wasn't a good champion.
That wasn't his fault.
What about Diesel?
Yeah,
that wasn't his fault. No, it wasn't his fault, but most people say, in turn, especially because of the time period, he was probably the worst WWE champion of all time. Mainly because it's not his fault, but like they weren't drawing, and that was just the business in '95. But they weren't drawing. Of course, they sat on with some terrible opponents, namely King Mabel at SummerSlam '95, which is the worst SummerSlam of all time.
Absolutely, no doubt there.
But even then, I remember he had a match against next month in your house against the British Bulldog, which was so bad that Vince literally slammed his headset and said it was terrible after the show went off the air. So, and of course, going to Allen, who was the best person he worked with? Bret Hart. Right. His best match of his career was when he lost title to Bret.
Yeah.
They had
all their matches were good. I mean, I think all their matches were good.
Yeah. I would say it's funny you bring up Bret because the thing that hurt champions in that era, in my opinion, I think it's so important if you win the match back in those days on a pay-per-view. Bret's first title run was not on TV. And then, of course, we all know Diesel, a couple days after Survivor Series 94, beat Bob Backlund in 8 seconds. So he wins the title, and he had no build-up for the title. He wasn't feuding with any of the champions at that time. So then, as Kyron said, then you put him in with Sid 3 times, and then King Mabel. God, I almost puked just thinking about that. That was the worst SummerSlam of all time. Yeah, so I mean, I feel for him though because it wasn't necessarily his fault, but that was a horrible title run, and he was set up to fail just by not having a build up and putting him on TV. Because look at Shawn the next year, the boyhood dream, like all the things that happened, getting beat up by those Marines and winning the Royal Rumble again, and kind of it made more sense. Is what I'm getting at.
Well, I told you before. I mean, I saw the interview, but the reason that he beat Bob Backlund on the house show is because they were down so bad on house shows. That Vince wanted to spark in people's minds that hey, anything could happen on the house shows too. So you don't want to miss what happens on house shows. So if the WWE Championship can change on the house shows, then you might want to show up at the house shows because you don't know what could happen. Which I understand the strategy behind it, but I feel like if you're gonna do that with championships, you should do that with world titles though. Maybe like a mid-card title or a tag team title or something like that. Like the world title or something like.
Since then, the closest we've even come to a world title changing hands on a house show was when Joe beat Finn for the NXT title. Outside of that, you're never gonna see a world title change hands on a house show. And then it's funny you say, because Vince wanted to show that fans should come to more house shows. Fans went to less house shows in '95.
Yeah.
So
it backfired.
It didn't work.
It backfired. I mean, he tried. He tried. So I mean, he tried something different. So I understand the logic behind what he was doing, but it didn't benefit him at the end of the day. It's still '95 is one of the worst years in WWE history. So they were down so bad, mainly because me and Alan were talking about they had so many cartoon gimmicks. You know what I mean? Like all the gimmicks were just cartoony and they just weren't believable for what people wanted to see. I mean, they had a couple of cool ones like Shawn, Razor Ramon's the coolest one they had, if you ask me, around that time frame. But other than that, you had a bunch of other people that were just goofy gimmicks.
And like, remember when us and Six Pack, we did the 2 worst gimmicks draft. Most of those gimmicks came from the mid '90s. I mean, for example, everyone knows. I just said SummerSlam '95 is the worst SummerSlam. Well, how did Mabel become number one contender? Because he won the King of the Ring, which is, in my opinion, not only the worst King of the Ring winner. I will make a strong case that King of the Ring 1995 is the worst pay-per-view WWF ever put out. Because when you look at it, and I can bring up the whole reason why the tournament failed. And look at the gimmicks in it. There were only two people in that tournament fans legitimately cared about: Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. And they both got knocked out early. Shawn's match ended in a draw, and Undertaker got knocked out by Mabel. And so you have the finals be Mabel, who isn't really that good. You got Savio Vega, who really came out of nowhere, and he got a big push, and the fans didn't care about him. And Mabel beat Savio Vega in less than 9 minutes. And mind you, this is in Philadelphia around the time ECW is coming up. So you got a lot of ECW fans hijacking the show. And that's one of the only reasons why King of the Ring 95 is their worst pay-per-view. The tournament's a big reason why, but I think people don't remember this. There were no title defenses that night. Road Dogg, the Roadie or Road Dogg, who was the tag team champion, or I know it was Jarrett, was the IC champion at the time.
Yeah,
he was managing the Roadie. The tag team titles weren't defended. Alundra Blaze wasn't even on the show, and then Diesel was in the main event in a tag team match, so he wasn't defending the title. And so the tournament was trash. There were no title matches, and then of course is the creme de la creme, a kiss my foot match between Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler on that show. And when anyone, especially even today, I got people say, "Oh, this is the worst thing that'd be." I will watch any pay-per-view WWE put on the last 5 years before I sit through King of the Ring '95. I will sit through ECW December to December 2006 before I sit through King of the Ring '95.
December to December?
Yes, I would. Yep, and it's not even close.
You know what? I don't think I can disagree with a word that man just said. Because, yeah, you're right. You're right.
December to December, though, that was, oh my God, that was.
At least December to December had a good tag team match between the Hardys and Eminem. That alone puts it over King of the Ring '95. Also, December to December didn't really hurt the business in any way. Whereas King of the Ring '95 is their worst year. So King of the Ring, remember back then King of the Ring was part of the Big Five. So they couldn't afford for this show to suck. And it sucked terribly. So it did more damage to the company because this was around the time he was the Bill Stars. And he pushed a guy in Mabel who no one really cared about, who really wasn't even that good, who had a reputation of being injured. Hell, at SummerSlam, he actually injured Kevin Nash. And Kevin Nash told him before the match, go easy on me. And he dropped his whole weight on his back, to which Nash couldn't even feel his legs. Yep. To the point where Vince was about to fire him backstage told Nash had to stop Vince from doing so.
Not to mention he broke Undertaker's eye socket too. So.
And then he broke Undertaker's eye socket, which got him his pink slip.
Yep.
Yeah. Mabel was
and hurt the Undertaker.
Mabel was a big dude, man. Big dude. I mean, they brought him back some. What was he? Mabel? I think it was Viscera, Big Daddy V.
Big Daddy V.
Yeah, he had a few different different gimmicks around that time.
God rest his soul.
No, yeah, God rest his soul. Rest in peace to Viscera. He was different. He was the Love Machine when I was growing up, though. So I ain't seen
That's when I grew. Yeah, that's when I started.
When I started, it was, I think they came in the late summer. Men on a Mission. It was him, Mo, and Oscar. One of my favorite moments, and this will go into something Malik wants to touch into, but one of my favorite moments of all time, Survivor Series '93, when they came out as Doinks on a Mission.
No.
I love that. I'm sorry.
No.
I love that. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
That was terrible. It was terrible. The fact that they actually turned Doink the Clown babyface.
Yeah.
And which obviously Malik knows, when I praise heel Doink the Clown, I hate babyface Doink. But the only time Doink was over the babyface was leading into that match. And then of course Matt Osborne got fired. So he wasn't going to be on the show. So they have Men on a Mission and the Bushwhackers dressed up as Doink versus Bash and Booger, the Head Shrinkers, and Bam Bam Bigelow. And then after that garbage match, they have the new Doink on the screen taunting Bam Bam, and it's clearly not the same guy. Like, you show a video package of Doink, Matt Osborne, the first Doink, Then he's not there, and you get a We Want Doink chant. Then after the match, you show the new Doink. I don't remember the guy who played the second Doink. I apologize.
I don't
And
know.
it's clearly not the same guy. If you were gonna do that, they should have waited weeks to bring Doink back, and then of course they brought Dink, and that was any chance of Doink ever being good again.
Dink was fired. What do you mean? What's wrong with Dink? What's wrong with Dink? Dink was cool. Dink was cool.
Listen, I cannot stand Doink the Clown as a babyface.
I'll stand by this though. Me and Alan were talking about this too, part of our chat. We were chatting through text messages, but I said that around that time frame, Doink the Clown could have been one of the biggest heels in WWE history if they would have pushed him as a heel clown, because a lot of people are terrified of clowns, and if they would have used that to their advantage, and they would have pushed him more of like the clown from It, like all the scary type shit and everything, it could have been a success because a lot of people hate clowns. So why not use the advantage?
And I heard that they were actually planning on doing a feud between him and the Undertaker. Imagine that could have been like a Batman Joker type of feud. Knowing that Doink the Clown, like you said, he could have pushed somebody as the clown from It. I mean, he had a scary thing, the way he talked, like, you had a good heel. He's one of the only good bright spots at that time. Then you make a babyface, which killed any chance of him getting over.
They try to, clowns just, I feel like if you're going to have a clown gimmick, you got to push him as a heel. It's just strictly people, there's a lot of people out there who just hate clowns. So, it's just, if they would have used that to their advantage, I don't know where his career could have went around that time, but he could have had a lot more success being a top heel if they would have pushed him as a heel, as a clown, because people legit hate clowns. Like if you go watch like Kyron said, the music and everything, but if you go look at that Titantron, he used to have like these little face transactions where he would like smile and shit, then he would like get all serious and shit like that. People were like, oh shit, like people hate clowns, bro, so they could have used that.
And we started off this whole thing. You asked me about WrestleMania 9. There were two Doinks. There was two Doinks
at that WrestleMania too.
And at the King of the Ring, where he crushed the Intercontinental Championship. So,
what's some of your guys' favorite moments from the Golden Age, New Generation WrestleManias? Before we move
on. Wait, which WrestleManias are you talking about in particular? So I need to know where.
The Golden Age, from the Golden Age era, Golden Age, New Generation era.
So WrestleMania 1. You just stating Golden Age. I'm going WrestleMania 1 to WrestleMania 9.
I'll say WrestleMania 1. I'll say strictly for me. After hearing the backstory, I'll say the main event, because Mr. T almost didn't even walk out there. What I'm saying? I don't know if you guys saw the story, but like Hogan literally had to convince T to go out there and do the thing. Roddy Piper hated Mr. T too, so that could have turned out terribly for so many reasons. Like they could have gotten to a legit fight and everything. And for that time frame, it was cool. Like I look at when I watch matches from that era, I have to put myself in that time frame, because I know the athleticism and everything isn't going to be what I see now. So I have to imagine if I was alive in the 80s, this is what wrestling was like. So of course this is how things were good. So for the 1980s, I think that match was okay. WrestleMania 2 ain't nothing great about WrestleMania 2 for me. WrestleMania 3, Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat obviously sold the show, but I will give credit to Hogan and Andre, because I have heard the stories of how that match was built. And for Andre wasn't even 100% to even go into that match either, had a bad back and everything. So for him to even do the favors to make Hulk Hogan, you got to give respect to that, because that's something that obviously he understood of the future of the business. And this could obviously elevate Hogan to the next level, to what they needed to do to push the company even further. So he did what he had to do for the business. The WrestleMania tournament was cool. Me and Alan were talking about this. We were talking about, has there ever been a streak in wrestling that ever ended good that people were satisfied with? And we don't know if there really is, because you look at Hulk Hogan's WWE Championship reign that ended at Saturday night's main event when Andre beat him, when he had a shoulder up and everything. And then he gave the title to DiBiase afterwards, and DiBiase never had to run as champion. So they had the WrestleMania tournament afterwards. So the tournament did set up for the cool Mega Powers feud, which was cool. But during that time, it's like the finish was screwy, and like Andre never even had to run as champion. I understand why they gave the title to him to begin with, because he never had the championship, but he literally gave it to DiBiase afterwards, and then DiBiase never had to run as champion. So I can understand if they gave the title to DiBiase and then they pushed DiBiase as a champion, but he never was champion. So what was the point of the end of the streak right there? Alan always brought up the Tonka streak that ended. Who's the one who beat the Tonka again? Are you talking about?
Yeah, he lost to Ludwig Borga in September on a Superstars taping. So he comes into the WWF in '92 and he's completely undefeated. Goes into 93, beat Shawn 3 times, including on a Superstars taping where Shawn debuted his most notable theme. And then, no, literally, Fuji distracted him. He got hit with a chair by Borga. Borga then dragged him in the ring and in the most disrespectful fashion just pinned him with a finger. And then Yokozuna came in and gave him a bonsai drop and put him out of action because they were trying to eliminate him from the Survivor Series 93 main event. But it made no sense. I'm like...
So you have that one. We talk about Goldberg streak. Goldberg streak ending the way it didn't bother me because obviously Goldberg was like a freaking machine at that time, so it was going to take some stuff to beat him. But I don't think Kevin Nash needed to be the one to beat him because they could have used that opportunity to create another big star by having somebody beat Goldberg at the time to help elevate somebody else up.
And they had the opportunity. And they had the opportunity to go back. In my opinion, Goldberg's best match ever. Halloween Havoc '98. When he fought DDP. That was the best match of Goldberg's career. When DDP hit the diamond cut, it took him to pin Goldberg. That could have been a moment where like you could have ended Goldberg's streak because DDP was super over with the crowd, and the match itself was really good. And Malik, you know me, I'm not the biggest Goldberg fan in the world. I don't really like Goldberg much. That is the best match Goldberg's ever had.
My only thing is, there has to be with streaks ending, there has to be believability and credibility behind people that are beating whoever they're gonna beat.
Thanks.
And like I said, Kevin Nash beating Goldberg the way he did, I think was believable to beat Goldberg at that time. But Kevin Nash didn't need to be the one to beat Goldberg because that didn't do anything for Kevin Nash because Kevin Nash was already a superstar. You know what I'm saying? That didn't really help benefit Kevin Nash to an extent. DDP. I just don't know. I don't know if I could have bought DDP beating Goldberg straight up. Like, I mean, he could have been over, but Goldberg was so unstoppable at that time. It's going to take a lot more than just a finisher to take down somebody like Goldberg at that time. I mean, he was killing everybody. Hulk Hogan.
Go back and watch the match. They literally built him as an equal to Goldberg. Watch the match again.
I seen the match, but DDP on the Goldberg level, man. He ain't on that level, man. Like Goldberg out there squashing people like Sting. Hogan, DDP ain't on that level, on the level of those stars. So, I mean, he was a great over superstar at that time. But sometimes when streaks end, it's gonna take a little bit more to beat certain people, unless you have that credibility or believability to beat. Like another streak we're talking about, Undertaker streak ending at WrestleMania. Now, Brock didn't need to be the one to beat the streak, but Brock has the most believability and credibility to take the streak because he's Brock Lesnar. So, from a believability standpoint, yes, I can believe that Brock can take the streak, but didn't really need to be Brock because once again, didn't do nothing for Brock. You know what I'm saying? Brock was already a beast. He was already solidified at that time. So didn't really elevate Brock up to the higher echelon, you know what I mean, in WWE. But I understand from a believability and a realistic standpoint, you look at Brock, you're like, oh yeah, Brock definitely could take the streak because looking at Brock, you're like, oh, that's Brock Lesnar. So that makes sense. And then I don't know if an Oscar streak getting to Charlotte at WrestleMania, you know what I mean? Like
I hated that.
I didn't hate Charlotte beating Asuka. I just hate what they did with Asuka afterwards. Like Charlotte, once again, to me, has the believability to beat somebody like Asuka. It's just after that they had Asuka losing to Carmella for the
yeah.
And that's what they lost to me. I'm like, all right, like Charlotte is Charlotte, so I can understand that, and the streak has to end at some point. But Carmella beating Asuka now, like, what are we doing?
No. First off, the only reason they had Charlotte beat Asuka at WrestleMania was because Vince wanted Charlotte to look as strong as possible for next year because always remember, the original plan from the moment Ronda signed was Charlotte versus Ronda in the main event of WrestleMania 35. Right. Becky just got too entirely over. They had to add her to the match. And even though common sense and storyline says Ronda should go after Becky after she won the Rumble because Becky pinned her, Vince was going to get that match between Charlotte and Ronda no matter what. And what happened? The match at WrestleMania last year was not good. So Vince, because he wanted Charlotte and Ronda from the beginning, and we finally and once Ronda came back in, we all know Ronda's run has done nothing good for the company since she came back, and has not elevated anybody. The match for Charlotte at WrestleMania fell flat, which I like to say I called, but Malik over there wants to say, oh, the storyline's bad, the promo not that good. I think the match is going to be good. I told the match wasn't going to be good, and the worst part is, despite the fact there's a WrestleMania match, the Royal Rumble winner, you have it end So with Charlotte getting a ref bump, Charlotte getting a big boot, only so he could build to another match the next month.
Well, the match the next month was better than the WrestleMania match. My thing is that you try to make it seem like they can't have good matches, and they already had a good match before the WrestleMania match at Survivor Series. So they already had proved they could put on a good match. The match could have been good. This story nobody was going to care about because nobody wanted Charlotte to be the champion at the time, and nobody wants Ronda to be the champion either because she just came back. So it's kind of like Brock and Roman at WrestleMania 34. Like the match was doomed from the beginning because nobody wanted either guy to be the champion. They hated Roman equally as Brock. They're tired of Brock's run as champion. But the one guy they don't want to be the champion either on the same level as Brock is Roman. So they're making the fans, they're basically saying, fans, you got to choose which one. You got to choose Brock or Roman. And fans are like, we're not picking either. So we don't want either of those guys. So it's just one of those type of scenarios. And I told Alan, Roman Reigns' championship run right now, if Cody beats Roman at WrestleMania, this may be the first legit streak that ends where it's like from start to finish, the story and everything was great. And then the finish also had a great ending.
Which I actually agree with. If
you look at all the other streaks I said, I mean, it's always iffy. Like some people hate Charlotte beating Asuka, some people hate Brock ending the streak, the Tonka streak ending like that, Goldberg streak ending, Hogan streak. Like there's never been a streak that ended that was like, you know what, that was a good ending to a streak if you think about it. Like everybody's streak that ended always had some type of that maybe you shouldn't have done it that way. But if Cody beats Roman at WrestleMania, I don't think a lot of people are going to be upset about that. I mean, this might be the perfect time. If it's not going to be Cody, then who else? So this could be the perfect time to finally pull the trigger on it. But going back to the WrestleManias, WrestleMania 5, like Hogan and Macho Man, I did like that match because I like the storyline building up to that.
Probably the best storyline they ever done.
Yeah, that's one of the best stories ever
involved. It's up there.
It's up there.
The Mega Powers, Miss Elizabeth, and everything. I mean, they played that story too.
Considering the fact it took a whole year, it was mainly 3 people involved in that storyline, and it worked to that degree. I would say it may be WWE's best storyline trying to long-term booking that they intentionally did. Like, it looked like, not counting like, say, Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 13, that wasn't intentional. I'm talking about in terms of intentional build. That might be WWE's best WrestleMania storyline.
What do you think about this? I need to touch on the missed opportunity of Adam Bomb. He could have been a major heel in WWE. I think he could have been a top heel.
No.
I'll let Alan take this one because I don't really have much to say.
Yeah. So, because Adam Bomb came in at a time, there was a time where WWE kind of had too many heels. So, at that time, you had Yoko, you had Shawn, you had Luger for the majority of 93, well, half of 93 until the whole Lex Express, and we'll get into that. Later. You had IRS, there were just too many heels. So I think the problem with Adam Bomb, even though he was a pretty good worker, is there really wouldn't have been a place for him because Yokozuna is the first WWE champion in the golden era to have the title that long. Like he finished off that era for 9 months. That had never happened. So I think he would have been a good mid-carder, but as for main event, no, because there were too many cooks in the kitchen heel-wise. Especially in 94 when you add in Owen, Bob Backlund. Yeah, there's just too many cooks in the kitchen for that.
Oh no, let's touch on that Lex Luger thing because we talked about that too, man. That pisses me off when I think about it. So my only thing with the whole issue, you cannot build up a guy and make it seem like you're going to create him as one of your next top stars. Because obviously they wanted him to be like the next Hogan, and he can never. I don't think anybody could ever fill Hogan's shoes, but they literally built him up in all the perfect ways they could. The whole Lex Express and everything, body slam Yokozuna, the Royal Rumble wins, and they teased him winning the championship so many times, only to never put the title on him. Why are we teasing this if this isn't the plan? Why are we changing plans? You got Lex Luger. Obviously, he got the total package. I mean, he got the great physique and everything. He got the total package look, but they literally built this guy up like they were going to push him and make him another top star in the company, only to never pull the trigger on him and make him the champion. It was a waste of time. It was a waste of an experiment.
I'm sorry. I know unintentionally it's hilarious to me. The fact now, to their credit, his actual face turn when he body slammed Yokozuna on the US on the ship was actually very well done. But the fact that he legitimately real life toured in that bus. They really made him sit in that bus and ride around the country to campaign for a title shot. And when you really have all the momentum in the world, when you literally built SummerSlam 93 around the U.S. with the colors and everything. He wins the match via count out, and then he had a celebration with confetti and balloons.
Yeah.
Like he won the title. That is hilarious. And the fact that they really thought that people would like that because they wanted to build a chase and have him win the Rumble. And then you get to the Rumble and the fans chose Bret over him. So Luger was never won a title. That is funny to me. The fact that he really was in that bus campaigning in real life, torn in that bus, and then didn't win the title at SummerSlam and had a parade like he won the title. That is funny. That is hilarious.
Yeah, that is, and I've talked to Malik about this a couple times. That's one of the more perplexing things I've ever seen because what I've talked about this with Diesel and Bret, like build up. Literally, not 1 month before the USS Intrepid Yokozuna Slam, he had that match with Tatanka as the narcissist in the King of the Ring tournament where they both were. It was a draw. So then the next time we see you on heading up to a major pay-per-view, you're now a babyface. And now we're going to put you on a bus, put you across the country, have you kissing babies, signing stuff to get you ready for this match. And the thing was, okay, even if you put the title on him, at that time, how far would you have been able to take him? Like, it just made no sense to me. I'm like, you literally just had Bret win the King of the Ring. You've literally been kind of slowly building this whole thing of Bret having his redemption. Maybe he gets the shot. And then they very beautifully threw in the Jerry Lawler caveat. So I was like, all right, fine, feud of the year. But it just made to me, it made no sense. And then like, it's a really dicey thing to really try to ever put someone in Hogan's shoes. Like, Hogan had a 4-year title run. Hogan had been a 5-time WWF champion. Like, Hogan sold out big time arenas. And this is at a time where this is 1993. You just had your WrestleMania at Caesar's Palace with 16,000. So
yep.
it just didn't make any sense. Now, as for him not winning the title at SummerSlam, I understood it, but it sucked because I felt like that was Yokozuna's best match of his career. Like, that was, of all the Yokozuna matches, that was his best one. Like, they pushed that to the time limit. But for him not to win, and then to put him in the Royal Rumble scene, he co-wins the Royal Rumble. But then by that point, the fans had chose Bret. The fans kind of fell in love with this storyline of, we saw what happened to Bret at WrestleMania 9. We want our champion back. That's kind of what it was. So it's unfortunate. And then Luger fell off after that, you know.
Not striking when the iron was hot. Literally.
Yeah.
If they had crowned Luger at SummerSlam 93, even if the fans still would have chose Bret, you could have done that in the main event of WrestleMania 10. But
it could have turned Luger heel. I mean, right there. He could have been heel.
It could have, maybe. But the fact that you didn't strike, like you said, if you don't strike when the iron's hot, but some wrestlers are just genuinely going to be over no matter what. So you don't have to do that, but you can build a chase. There are other wrestlers, if you catch lightning in the bottle, you gotta deliver like that. Right. Like, for example, for a lot of people, they thought Sammy should have won at Elimination Chamber. It was in Canada. And some people thought, oh, well, he's not going to have that type of support again. To me, Sami Zayn is such a likable person and such a good performer. He's going to be always over. So that wasn't a lightning in the bottle situation. Where, in the contrary, I thought Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle was more of a lightning in the bottle thing because it was in the UK. And Drew was not going to be, even though Drew McIntyre is still very over with the crowds, he would not have been more over here in America, in the States, than he would have been in the UK. So I felt like that, like, I really believed in my heart Drew was going to win more at Clash of the Castle. The Sami was going to win Elimination Chamber. Even though the Sami storyline would have me more invested, I knew that deep down, Sami wasn't going to win. Whereas with Drew, I actually thought he was going to win at Clash of the Castle.
I mean, with the runs that the run that Roman is having as champion, it's a tough decision to make. They still got a tough decision to make at WrestleMania too. I mean, yeah. The run's so long now. You got to basically decide whether or not you want to strike or you want to keep the run going. So it makes it tough. With Luger though, I just feel like I said it was lightning in a bottle. Like you can't build up a guy like that and make it seem like you're going to put the title on him and make him the champion. Because, like I said, you know who Lex Luger reminds me of? When they teased that they were going to do something with him, fucking Braun Strowman. They had all the credibility and all the tools right there with Braun Strowman. All they had to do was have him beat Brock Lesnar. They had one job. Just have him beat Brock Lesnar, and that would have solidified Braun Strowman. And they had him lose to Brock every time. And not only did he lose to Brock every time, Brock squashed him every time. That's what hurt Braun Strowman more than anything. So Luger, man, I just never understood the whole why the Lex Express and then SummerSlam you not have like Kyron said, like the whole celebration. They didn't even win the title. What are we celebrating for? There's no championship.
Well, and then I think I was telling you this because one of my favorite video games of all time from a WWE standpoint is the Royal Rumble games. There were two systems. There was Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. In both games, literally, he's in the narcissist gimmick. So even though they're starting to push him, your major video game platform, you have him as a heel. So it also brought confusion. The one thing I will say about him not winning the title is that I kind of agree with, even though they pushed it so much, is you put Hogan expectations on a title run at a time where business isn't doing well. I mean, hope and pray.
And I think another thing that no one ever brings up is none of the Lex looks stupid celebrating in general because he won the match by count out. He didn't win the title. That alone makes him look stupid. I think people forget the storyline. Lex couldn't challenge for the title again. Like Jim Cornette put in the contract that was going to be Lex Luger's only shot. So not only are you celebrating with a parade after you didn't win the title, but you're not going to get another shot.
Good point. You're absolutely right about that.
All right, let's touch on this WCW thing, man, that we were touching on. This is what we were talking about. The main topic we were talking about was Sting versus Hogan, the Starrcade buildup. The one thing this is how our conversation even started. So, Alan, I'm with Alan. This is pretty much the death of WCW right here, the downfall. I mean, I'll let you say. You can explain the whole thing. I'll let you explain it from the start to finish.
Yeah, how the conversation started was you had asked me about that feud. So basically, they have this buildup. You know, the NWO comes in '96. Sting leaves. He basically tells WCW to stick it.
Well, yeah, explain why Sting left, though. Like, why he left in the first place.
Go ahead, Kyron. What's up? You had your finger up.
Well, I'm just going by storyline because it wasn't real life problems.
No, it was the storyline.
I know why Sting left. I'm just saying that he can explain it for like.
I mean,
basically at War Games, the NWO said they had Sting, and a fake Sting was in the match.
Right.
So a lot of his teammates and a lot of fans and people backstage thought Sting turned on the crowd, turned on the AEW. Sting came out in War Games, beat down a fake Sting. He didn't shake the NWO's hand, but he did look at Luger and said, that proof enough for you, and walked away. And the next night on Nitro, Sting pretty much said, anyone who doubted me, you can stick it. And that's when he walked away.
Walked off. Intentionally, you know how the cameras are angled? He intentionally had his back to the camera that's supposed to be on his face. So then he's gone. He comes back a couple of times with the black paint, but this is like early before like the black paint that we know, the black and white, you know, because the NWO tried to make him join. And then a couple of months after, that's when he was starting to sit in the rafters looking like the Crow. And then he really didn't make any contact until, what was the pay-per-view? It was Uncensored.
Uncensored.
He comes from the rafters. He beats up the NWO. He actually touches Hogan. And then it's just, you know, he keeps coming out. He keeps coming out, you know, from time to time. But how the match got set up from a TV standpoint was J.J. Dillon, former WWE executive, former member of the Four Horsemen. J.J. Dillon kept saying, Sting, what is it that you want? We need you. And Sting pointed into the crowd and grabbed a sign, and it said Sting versus Hogan. And that set up the Starrcade. So then they have this buildup. And you're right, it's the death of WCW from this standpoint. Not only because of the botch, not only because the match failed, but remember, that was December 27th. Not 1 month later, Stone Cold Steve Austin won the 1998 Royal Rumble, and we all knew what that meant. And, you know, they tried to do the rematch with Hogan and Sting at Super Bowl.
It wasn't the same.
It wasn't
They,
the
they
same.
ruined the moment because this is probably the best WCW storyline they ever did. They built us up for
I agree.
the entire
It was.
year. These two never even had a match in between until Starrcade. All they had to do was have Sting beat Hogan, but Hogan had that creative control in his contract, and in his mind, he didn't want to lose clean to Sting because he has to have some type of reason to come back and face Sting and challenge him in a rematch. So they quote unquote did the fast count, which wasn't even a real fast count. And then
It was actually slower than a normal count.
yeah, and then Bret came out and said he counted fast and everything. They restarted the match. I mean, ultimately Sting still won the championship, but it's just he should have just beat Hogan straight up, and the moment would have been so much bigger.
And you
Listen,
had
we all talk about Hulk Hogan's ego, rightfully so. But I understand he had creative control. But at what point, if whoever's running WCW, Bischoff or whoever's running WCW, should have put their foot down, told Hogan what was going to happen? Like, you cannot sacrifice the biggest match, maybe in your company's history, over that type of pettiness.
Can I answer that? You know why? And it's been proven over and over. Bischoff has acknowledged this. It's because WCW had a lot, but they didn't have a Vince. See, Vince was that guy typically at the end of the day. Yeah, he was very lenient, at some points. The Montreal screw job, we all know how he kind of played as a go-between until Triple H had those famous words on the phone. But they had too many cooks in the kitchen. So they didn't have anybody to tell Hogan, because Hogan's a big star. And now that he's revitalized himself with the NWO, he's
not to mention too, he has creative control in his contract. He doesn't have to do anything he doesn't want to do because it's in the contract. So even if they say, "Hey, you got to go out here and beat Sting," he can still say, "I'm not fucking doing it because I have the creative control to do it."
And this is what I'm gonna say. I get, and once again, like Alan said, this is why, like, when you see a lot of fantasy booking videos from people, it's hard to do a WCW fantasy booking because if Vince wants a storyline done, he'll get a storyline done. Back then, you had so many people in charge, but this is why whenever people can talk about backstage politics or say Triple H or John Cena, neither Triple H nor John Cena or anyone else would have done what Hogan did that night. That was the biggest match in that company's history, and out of pettiness, you ruined it. I'm sorry, but that's inexcusable.
Let me point out one thing that I didn't know, because Malik had me watch that NWO documentary that they just had on A&E. Apparently, even that count, Sting was actually supposed to kick out. Now, I didn't know that. They talked about it in the documentary, just to throw that out there. Where he got pinned, he was actually supposed to kick out.
Well, that's what Hogan said, though.
That's what Hogan. I don't believe Hogan there.
See, Eric Bischoff didn't say that. Hulk Hogan is the one that said he's supposed to kick out.
All right.
Bischoff said it was supposed to be the fast count.
Okay.
Hogan said he's supposed to kick out.
Okay.
So
those two contradict themselves. Why even do a fast count if Sting isn't going to kick out? Why bring Bret down if Sting didn't get screwed? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm just going off of what
it contradicts both ways. I mean, and realistically, Hogan still could have lost clean. He still could have got his rematch. I mean, he still could have asked for the rematch because he lost the title. So why would any champion not want to get a rematch after he loses the championship? You feel me? Like, it just goes both ways. Like, I feel like there are certain times when you got to step up and if you have not the creative control, but if you're in position of like a Hulk Hogan, there are certain times you should step up and all right, we should be doing this, something like that. But like Kyron said, like, there's no reason that any of this should have happened. You have a perfect story like this. All you have to do is just have the guy win. It's the same thing like with Braun Strowman. They built him up perfectly as the dominant monster in WWE. They plant the seeds. He's squashing people on TV that nobody knows. They had him in certain feuds that were important. Then he had the big feud with Roman Reigns that put him over the upper echelon. All they had to do was just beat Brock, who was the other most dominant guy in the company. That would have helped put Braun Strowman up at the top. But they didn't do it. It's like lightning in a bottle. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity you have right here. And they had rematches after this, but it's not the same now because you had that opportunity to make this happen and you didn't do it.
And
it's just like
there's the WWF.
It's just like if WWE didn't have Daniel Bryan win at WrestleMania 30, that would have been the worst thing ever because that was the thing to do because that was the biggest story and that was the biggest moment that people were waiting for. The only thing that could have saved Brock taking the streak with Daniel Bryan on that title at the end of the night.
Absolutely.
It's the only thing that would make people happy, and they did it the right way. So it's just you can't have certain things like this certain storylines like this, first off, you should never give wrestler creative control over like complete creative control in the contract. Anyway, it's like the
Not at all.
It's kiss of death. Certain things maybe like over maybe over like your character or something like that. Like, hey man, I want my but like not complete creative control where you have the ability to book matches or work with certain people that you only want to work with, or maybe win certain matches. Like that's the kiss of death because now you have no control over that superstar. They can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, it's how we got to Montreal.
And think about it this way: Starrcade '97 was the beginning of the avalanche that killed WCW because that was their best storyline, probably the biggest match they ever did. They botched it up. Austin wins the Rumble the next month, and WrestleMania 14 happened, which was huge for the company because they had Tyson. That was when things started going well for them. And then '98, which is in my opinion WWE's best year, next 2000, the best year the Attitude Era. WCW '98 wasn't anything special besides Goldberg. Goldberg loses his streak at Starrcade, and and then in my opinion the final probably if Starrcade '97 wasn't the first snowball. This is when the coffin started building. January 4th, 1999. Not only because of the finger poke of doom, but what did WCW do that night that really screwed them? They spoiled Mick Foley's title win, and everyone turned to Raw, and he never got those viewers back. That was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that was the biggest downfall.
Pre-tape too.
That was the biggest downfall too because, like I said, '97, the Sting not beating Hogan straight up, and then WCW. I mean, if you ask me, Goldberg carried WCW '98 with that streak. I mean, he was the main factor and the main attraction. I mean, like without Goldberg in that era as their big star, WCW probably would have already fell down a little bit faster than they already did. But because Goldberg was such a big star and he had that big streak, people tuned in because they wanted to see what he was going to do because he had all this intensity and believability behind what he was doing and everything. And this is the thing that hurts Goldberg right here is that the streak was great while it was happening. Goldberg was never meant to be a great wrestler in the ring. People didn't pay money to see him put on a Shawn Michaels type performance. They paid money to see him squash people, and that's what he did. And he did it better than anybody. But the main problem is eventually that streak was going to have to come to an end. And it's going to come to a point where he's going to have to tell stories in the ring and have a little bit longevity in the matches. And those are when the cracks start to fall with Goldberg because he didn't know how to do much in the ring because he was following everybody else's lead in the ring because he wasn't seasoned. He got thrown in there very quick, and then they gave him the push of a lifetime very fast. Before he was ready. So the cracks start to fall under that because now when Goldberg's streak was over, fans are like, oh, wait a minute, Goldberg not really that good in the ring, is he like that? Because he's not putting on really good matches, and that he can't have squash matches like that anymore because the streak's dead. You know what I'm saying? That's gone anymore. So that was another big downfall for them right there. So, like I said, Austin, once WWE realized that they had something in Steve Austin, it was over right there. Yes, I mean, it was like, oh, we got Austin. And then on top of that, if you also look at '98, yeah, Austin was the big guy, but they also had The Rock, who was also coming up too at that time. He was getting crazy reactions too. So like, oh, we got Austin and we got Rock. Then they turned Rock heel later that year in the tournament, and they put him in the corporation. And then you got Rock and all. And it's done deal now. Like you have,
that was that night. As much as I can't stand him, and it's booking. Survivor Series '98 was Vince Russo's greatest masterpiece, in my opinion.
Oh, the Survivor Series tournament, yes, I agree.
Don't let Jim Cornette hear you say that.
Yeah, we don't know how Jim Cornette feels about Mr. Vince Russo. And Vince Russo had his moments, but like Kyron said, you got to give credit where credit's due. Like Survivor Series '98 was a masterpiece, well done. Like Rock turning heel was the right move at that time. He's the champion. He joins the corporation. That sets up for Austin and Rock at WrestleMania next year, which was huge.
And what I love most about that tournament is like, and once again, this shows how brilliant it was when you don't realize it. You had Big Boss Man get eliminated by The Rock in less than a minute. And then comes down during The Rock's match with Ken Shamrock. It looks like he tossed a baton at the Shamrock. Rock catches it. He's like, Big Boss Man is helping The Rock get to the finals without no one realizing it. It was such a good storyline because you don't realize everything that they're doing setting up the finals until you get there.
Because it wasn't like, he like I said, he beat Boss Man quickly, which was purposely because Boss Man was supposed to lose because he was under the corporation. And then you say he threw the knife stick up in there and he caught it. So it was like, it was like an accidental type thing. Like, oh, I wasn't supposed to go to him. So of course you didn't think about it at the time. But then at the end, you're like, holy shit, like this was the plan from the beginning. It was a good storytelling, a good storytelling masterpiece. You know what I mean? So it was perfectly done because, like I say, it sets up Rock and Austin at WrestleMania, which were the two biggest guys in the company, and that helped elevate the attitude era right there. I mean, that was the big start right there. Not to mention too, if you ask me, before the Starrcade stuff even happened, I think WWE was also already on an upward spiral before the Montreal Screwjob, because they had Kane come in with the Undertaker and Kane storyline, and that shit through all '97 was masterpiece, because people were like, all right, who's Kane? Like, who's this guy? Who's Undertaker's brother? The way they built it up, and then when you physically saw Kane in the Hell in a Cell match, and you saw him stand face to face with the Undertaker, you were like, this dude's bigger than Undertaker, and what the hell is this? And he tombstone Undertaker. I don't think anybody ever tombstone Undertaker up to that point. That was Undertaker's signature move right there. Like, nobody ever had, I don't think ever, besides maybe the fake Undertaker.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
But that was part of the story too, because you didn't know Undertaker was supposed to know what Undertaker was Undertaker, so that was obviously his move. But like, nobody else who wasn't Undertaker had never tombstone Undertaker before. So when you had seen that, you were like, oh my gosh, like what is this? So WWE was kind of already up on the upper echelon. And then the Montreal Screwjob that put the Vince McMahon character on TV, which people didn't know that Vince was the owner at the time. So once they found out he was the owner, that made the Vince McMahon character, which, even though the Montreal Screwjob was wrong to Bret, it was great for the WWE business, because they gave us the Vince character. You know what I mean? So,
and that there was a big risk putting Vince on TV, because imagine the fans that rejected Vince and the company in general at the Montreal. They might not have been able to recover.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why I always felt like that was never doomed to fail, in my opinion, because you had Bischoff in WCW.
Yeah.
So it's like to me, I just don't believe that WWE fans, because a lot of us were split between WCW and WWE. There's no way we wouldn't have thought that Vince being the big boss on TV was cool, because we literally watched Bischoff do it.
Were you more of a WWE, WCW guy watching back then?
At that point, I was more of a WWE guy. Then Bret got screwed, and I took some time away from WWE. But then I went back when WCW just became.
Before Bret had got screwed though, were you always in between, or were you kind of more toward WWE, WCW?
I would say I was 60-40 WWE, because like my favorite WCW storylines had long since passed, and then like I was kind of getting tired of the NWO by that point, and especially after the Sting Hogan flop, then it was just like, oh,
yeah, NWO Wolfpack and everything. Yeah, that was...
I that's another, and I know I'm gonna get hate for this, but that's another downfall of WCW. There should have been no Wolfpack. I stand on that. The Wolfpack was the worst. Was one of the worst things. It had a cool theme song, had cool colors, but then you just had things that you didn't need. You already have a faction that has way too much TV time, then you split it. Then you add Sting, which really didn't need to happen. Mm-hmm. Like we literally go from this guy who didn't talk for 9 months, who would just come out the Raptors, to now he's wearing red and black and he's cutting promos all of a sudden. It's just like, and none of his matches were good.
And as bad as 99 was for WCW, 2000 was literally, it's crazy, because 2000 is, in my opinion, WWE's best year.
Yes. Raw
was amazing. Besides WrestleMania King of the Ring, every pay-per-view delivered. Whereas WCW couldn't get anything right in the year 2000. Mm-mm. There was not one good pay-per-view that year.
Nope.
And then, of course, you got the title change.
The only thing they probably had right was pushing Booker T. That might have been it.
But even then, that happened only because everybody had left.
Yeah,
that's true.
Eddie and He Who Will Not Be Named, and Dean Malenko, and all those guys.
What are some of your moments from that era that they think are big missed opportunities from that era? Besides the ones you named, WCW, man, if they would have let DX in that arena that night, man, they should. Oh man, just
I would have done it.
Just thinking about what could happen. I don't know what would have happened, but my gosh, bro, if they would have let DX in the building that night, that's a big missed opportunity right there. Oh my gosh, just thinking about this, what could have happened. I don't know what would have went down, but I mean, if they would have let WWE in the WCW arena, that shit could have been a masterpiece right there.
That should have been one of the only nights where Vince went to Bischoff and said, "Listen, one of us is going to win this war. Just for this one night, let's work together." Because imagine the ratings that would have got if DX had went in that building that night. We still, like, we in my opinion, DX invading WCW is still one of the greatest Raw moments ever. But if they had walked into that building, that'd be one of the greatest moments in wrestling history.
No, for sure. If they'd have walked down the WCW stage, that'd have been insane. Like that would have been. What are some other moments you guys think are missed opportunities besides the ones we already named? We already named a few. We named Sting, obviously Hogan. We named some other ones.
Well, see, after 1998 with WCW, pretty much can say everything.
That's true.
But I'm trying to think.
It could be even before that.
Oh, I got it. This is for WWF. What if somebody else was the higher power? Think about instead of Vince. I still think that's one of the biggest mistakes because one of my favorite moments in Raw history was when Austin saved Stephanie that night. Still one of my favorite moments. And I just say they really, every time I watch it, I just think they really messed it up having Vince be the higher power because it was such a good storyline leading up to it.
But to be fair, though, I'm going to counteract that. I will say Vince sacrificing Stephanie for the greater good did turn out really well in the end because Stephanie did end up turning on Vince and going with Triple H, and that was the McMahon Helms era was really good. That made Stephanie McMahon like a top echelon heel because before she had turned heel, she was like the princess, you know what I mean, like the ultimate good guy. Like nobody saw anything bad in Stephanie, and Triple H was the ultimate bad guy. But when she signed with Triple H,
I remember
over
that.
her dad at Armageddon, and they
that.
kissed over his body, bro. That was like holy shit, bro. Like.
That.
And it made sense. It made sense for Stephanie to do it because Vince turned on her before she turned on him, so she was out for revenge. So the whole picture, I think, turned out well to me.
And I think what made that moment even better was Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler on commentary because he's standing over Stephanie with the hammer. He's gonna hit Stephanie. He puts the hammer down, and they hug each other. It's oh my goodness, just the way Stephanie goes from. Like shot Triple H just holding the hammer, just the way she started smiling, that was just perfect.
Yeah, that was good storytelling right there. You have one, Alan? You want to throw it there?
I mean, I don't know if I have a particular storyline, but if we want to talk WCW,
moment could be a moment, any moment.
Because we touched on the bigger things.
Any moment. It could be a moment. It doesn't have to be a storyline. It could just be a moment that was a missed opportunity that people. I mean, a big missed opportunity that they should have done correctly the first time and messed it up.
Well, I'll give you one. I'll say this. I'll give you one that came too late. In 1999, for the first time, they had Sting turn heel. Like, legit heel. Mm-hmm. It was too little too late. It was way too little too late.
I mean, some people, though, I feel like some people are never meant or don't need to be heels. So I feel like Sting was always one of those people. Like, he was the anti-hero for the Crow stuff. You know what I mean? So he was the anti-hero against WCW because they were running the entire shit. And Sting was the one guy who just refused to. Him and DDP were the two guys who refused to be involved in the whole concept. And they needed an anti-hero around that time. And Sting was that's why he went Crow and everything, because he was mysterious. Like, he didn't speak. He had the perfect look and everything. Everybody did what he wanted, but he was completely different from the blonde, and everything. Like, he wasn't that type of Sting no more. So I feel like there are certain people that just never, like, Sting's just a babyface for me. Like, he's been babyface pretty much throughout his entire run.
That's what made it so bad.
Even through TNA, like, he was always babyface. You feel me? Like, Sting was just a natural babyface.
And what made it worse is, it's not like Sting turned heel on Hogan.
Right.
Okay, one, Sting didn't really change any of his movesets or anything, so he didn't really act like a heel. Two, the fans didn't boo Sting. And I think three, this is an important thing. In storyline, why should the fans boo Sting? Like, just think this way. Yeah, Hogan had just turned face. We had spent the last 3 years trying to kill WCW. So what, Sting's just supposed to buy that Hogan is on the side now after you tried to kill the company?
He had some heel moments, but it's still. I thought it was too little too late.
Yeah, it's too little too late. It wasn't the same. 100%. I 1,000% agree with y'all saying. So it was never the same after, Plus, a lot of that time when they turned Hogan face, people were just tired of the babyface Hogan. And when they came back to WWE, when people wanted to see the old Hulk Hogan back because it was the WWE product, and that's what they saw in the WWE. You know what I mean? So people didn't want to see. I mean, if you have him versus The Rock, they literally had to change everything in the match because they booed The Rock and they were cheering Hogan. And so The Rock had to play the heel now, and Hogan had to play the babyface. So, I mean, that's just what the fans wanted at the time, which was another reason why that match was a masterpiece right there, because having to change everything up in the match right then and there on the fly, that's not easy to do for everybody. Only the top elite superstars can do something like that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people we've seen a lot of people maybe who are cracked under that pressure or under that spotlight. You know what I mean? Like if you thrive under that environment and you can be able to change stuff in the middle of the ring and call it like, hey, we gotta change it right now. You know what I mean? Like this is not what we can do because it ain't what the fans are going for. So you got to change everything on the Ultimate Fly. So it makes for a good concept. What before we head off here, give me some of your guys', or if you have one, you can name a couple. Some of your favorite moments in wrestling history throughout the history of wrestling. Some of your favorite moments that stand out to you.
We could be here a while. Well, oh man, any era, any company,
any era,
wrestling history.
Let's do some Repo Man. I don't know about Repo Man.
Let me think. Well, I'll give one. Obviously, I'll give one Bret moment. WrestleMania 10. That's an automatic. Steve Austin winning at WrestleMania 4. Actually, you know what? The double switch. The double switch at WrestleMania 13. That always stands out to me. John Cena and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 23. I believe it was.
Thank you so much. It was 23. Someone else loved that match.
Oh yeah. Because I didn't care. I didn't care as much for Shawn and Flair the next year. Sorry, I'm just gonna put that. And then both Undertaker Shawn matches, 25 and 26 for sure. And one moment that hasn't happened yet, but it's coming, when Roman goes down. It's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Okay, for me, I can't. This is just moments. These aren't matches themselves. So this is no particular order. Kofi Kingston winning the WWE title at WrestleMania 35. Eddie Guerrero winning the WWE title. Those are probably two of the most emotional title wins. Savage and Elizabeth getting back together at WrestleMania 7. Has to be up. That is up there for me. What else? I'm trying to think. Like, what other like moments? See, for me, it's not just most. Like, for example, Sacramento Rock concert. One of my favorite. One of the funniest things they ever did.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of moments. Of course, the beer. Austin spraying a corporation with beer is a legendary moment.
That's a good moment.
I would say, for me, definitely this is an underrated moment because no one ever talks about it. Was the first time John Cena and AJ Styles were face to face on Raw, because the crowd went back and forth. Let's go Cena, AJ Styles for like 5 whole minutes. Because if you grew up in the 2000s, that was the match you always wanted, like Cena versus Styles. So that was an underrated moment for me. CM Punk's entrance at Money in the Bank, 2011. And I'm just naming ones off the top of my head. These are just some of them.
Those are all good.
Can I add 2 more?
Good.
Yeah. CM Punk, when he left, was it Money in the Bank when he left with the WWE title and gave the kiss?
Yeah.
And then I'll go all the way back to 93. Flair beating Vader at Starrcade. Love that moment.
That's a good one right there. I'll say moments for me. Eddie Guerrero winning the title for sure is up there for me. Moments too. I'm gonna say the Sasha Banks and Bayley match to take over Brooklyn. That to me, that was the whole change of women's wrestling for me right there. Like that and the shift, the atmosphere, like that was something incredible that I remember a moment in time. From a personal reason, because I hated Edge so much growing up. So when John Cena took that man on that ladder and he put him through those tables and took that title back, my gosh, happy 8-year-old me. I couldn't even get to tell you, bro, because I hated Edge so much. I was ready for John Cena to get those title back. Like, my gosh. I would also say The Rock coming back to set up Cena versus Rock was a big one for me because that's something I never thought I'd see. So that was a huge moment. The Streak versus the 4-year story between Taker, Shawn, and Triple H of those WrestleManias were all incredible to me. That was peak storytelling. You know, the Heaven versus Hell, then the Streak versus Career, and then Triple H coming back the same night Taker came back to challenge Taker at WrestleMania, and then the end of an era. Like that's peak storytelling right there. Those 4 years. I
also got to throw one in too, and this is only because I was there. Brock flipping the ring over at SummerSlam last year.
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
Just because me and Malik were there, man. Like when we first, like, it's funny because when Romans come out is when they bring the track down. I'm thinking, why are they bringing the track down? So Brock rides down on the track, and I'm like, what's he gonna do with the track? And I'm thinking, I wasn't thinking he's gonna tip the ring over. I'm thinking, I didn't know what he's gonna do with it. I thought he's gonna. I didn't know. So when Brock gets behind the wheel and he literally drives up and tips the ring over, I really could not believe it. Especially being there in person, it made it so much better.
Yeah, that was
because we were literally right on the side of the ring where it was getting tipped. But it was so cool.
I'll say another great moment for me was seeing Cody come back at WrestleMania last year.
I remember your reaction to that one, man. I ain't never heard you scream like that.
Alan was right next to me.
I was right next. I got it on video too.
I got sitting right next to me. I was like, bro, if Cody comes out, I just know I'm about to go crazy because Cody Rhodes is my guy, man. So
I just got my Cody chalkline jacket.
That was a big one for me. Also seeing Steve Austin in person, wrestling in person, that was like,
oh man. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that,
that's a moment I can never forget because me and Alan were there, and I don't know if he ever saw Austin before in person, but like, from the promo package all the way until Austin left the arena, nobody was sitting down in that place, and it was mayhem. I can't
lie, when I saw that, when I saw Austin wrestling, that's when I said to myself, I wish I went with him. I wish I had gone. Like it was at that moment I said, I wish I had went.
It was crazy, bro. It was. I mean, the match wasn't long and everything, but like when I said to Alan, I said, when Austin comes out, he gonna come out with the knee braces and the shorts.
And the shorts.
And he comes out with that, he's having a match. And Alan was like, it ain't gonna happen. But when he came out, I was like, bro, what I say? He's having a match.
And the crazy thing is, like, it wasn't like as soon as the bell rung, I'm watching on this computer I'm using right now. I was watching it. And I literally had the biggest smile on my face the entire time. I'm like, oh my goodness, Stone Cold is actually wrestling right now. Yeah. I'd like, and even then, I'm thinking, even then, this what made it special for me. I thought it was just gonna be like a couple moves and a quick stunner. But when KO hit the suplex on the concrete, that's when I said, okay, this is real now.
Yeah, they're having a legit match. It was crazy, man. It was a crazy atmosphere, crazy environment. Like, just to be there for Cody's return and to be there for that Austin thing, that was pretty legit, man. That's one of the last year's WrestleMania is one of the best WrestleManias I think they did in a long time. So
it definitely was a pretty good show. It was in my opinion, last year's WrestleMania, and you guys can speak on it different because you were there. It was the perfect mix of sports entertainment and wrestling.
Yes.
I mean, you got. Let's be honest, it was a pretty stupid show if you think about it. You had like literally the Sami Zayn Johnny Knoxville match, which is.
See, Alan was hating on that match. That match.
You hated that?
I couldn't.
Beautiful.
I couldn't.
Something wrong with you.
He was in the crowd hating on that match the entire time when it was a masterpiece.
I just had my hand on my face like, when
is it over? I was sitting there just laughing my entire. I loved it, and like so you had that. You had. I'm trying to think of something else. And like what else was? You had obviously Austin and KO.
Pat McAfee and Austin Theory, like
McAfee Austin Theory, that was cool.
That was really good. I mean, you had a lot of cool moments in that. Logan Paul, the Mysterio, like there was a lot of cool moments in there that.
I think
because even with the Logan Paul stuff, when he came out, I mean, obviously we didn't know he was gonna wrestle more matches later, but I mean, when he gave those three amigos and then he got on the top rope and did the Eddie Guerrero shake, people in the crowd lost their minds.
And here's the thing: I'm glad they finally made Logan Paul a heel because. I'll give him his credit. He's a really good wrestler. Yeah. Like WrestleMania last year.
I don't know why they ever tried.
He's a heel now. His match against The Miz last year was better than it had any right to be at SummerSlam. And I remember Malik can vouch for this. That was the one match I was saying I don't really want to see this match. I don't care. And I'm watching like this is a really good match. Yeah. The match with Roman and Saudi Arabia, even though everyone knew on planet Earth he wasn't going to win. Then it's just showing in the Royal Rumble. Him and Ricochet hit a double springboard. That was incredible. And I admit, I think his match against Rollins at WrestleMania is going to be one of the best matches of the weekend.
I think that probably will be match of the night for either WrestleMania, if you ask me. Like, you have Seth Rollins, who's already one of the best. He's been one of the best for years. And then Logan Paul, who's proved that he can go in the ring, too. So, I mean, it's got potential to be up there. But WrestleMania last year was a really cool moment. I just, for a lot of the moments that they had, definitely, to me, one of the best WrestleMania things they did in a long time. This year, I don't know. I mean, this year could top it, maybe. I do know that they're making the card a lot shorter than they usually make.
Which is good.
Which is good, because Triple H usually does, like, the short carders, and the short carders are always, I think, have some of the good pay-per-views. I mean, look at Elimination Chamber last week or 2 weeks ago. They only had 5 matches, but it was a really good show. You know what I mean? So
I don't think Triple H has had a bad pay-per-view yet since he started booking. The closest you can probably say is maybe Extreme Rules, but even then, I don't think that was a bad show.
Extreme Rules was incredible.
SummerSlam, I've heard a lot of people, it had mixed feelings. SummerSlam.
I probably may say War Games. War Games was probably.
I disagree. I think the only reason people crap on War Games is Ronda versus Shotzi. Both War Games matches were good in their own right. The main event was a better story, but the women's match had better action.
Right.
The U.S. title triple threat was good, and I thought Balor and Styles was good. But outside of that, Clash of the Castle was probably the best show Disney put on last year. SummerSlam, I'm biased, but I'm biased. I was there, but I love SummerSlam. What else? Well,
Royal Rumble was incredible.
Royal Rumble was very good.
I was there.
Royal Rumble was incredible.
And Elimination Chamber, it's funny because there's a girl in my job who watches wrestling too. So I remember the day after, on Sunday, the day after the Elimination Chamber, she asked me what I thought of the show. I said I loved it. I love Roman and Sammy. The women's Elimination Chamber match, I thought it was solid. The men's Elimination Chamber match was amazing. When Gargano hit the Hurricane off the pod on Seth.
Yeah.
Oh man, I loved every second of it. The only thing about Elimination Chamber I didn't like was Brock and Bobby. That's it.
Yeah, that was the only kind of downfall. But I mean, there's some good things about WrestleMania that I'm liking. I mean, we know 2 matches already. There's a lot of rumors. I mean, we know Seth and Logan is going to be rumored. Austin Theory and John Cena is probably going to happen at WrestleMania.
And I'm being honest. Here's what I'm doing. For WrestleMania, if not only does Rhea have to beat Charlotte, obviously she has to beat Charlotte. I think she should beat Charlotte clean, like no shenanigans.
Yeah, for sure.
I think she should beat her clean. I think
if you're gonna do KO,
if you're gonna do Austin Theory and John Cena, which that's fine, I would have Theory win that match clean as well.
Yeah.
If you really wanna put like these two in like upper echelon, imagine Austin Theory beating John Cena of all people clean at WrestleMania.
That'll be big for him. I trust Triple H's booking. The only one I really don't know how it's going to turn out is Brock and Omos. I have no idea.
That's not going to happen.
Oh, it is happening.
No, it isn't.
How much you want to bet? Because it's happening.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Because Bobby Lashley is facing Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. So that's happening.
Yeah, I disagree with that 100%.
Brock and Omos. I've already seen all the rumors. Like, this is legit the scheduled match for Brock and Omos at WrestleMania. So, like I said, I trust Triple H's booking. I don't know. This is my only thing. I mean, obviously, they're doing it because Brock and Bobby at the Chamber, and they're going to bring back the Hurt Business. I'm assuming Omos is going to be put in the Hurt Business. So, my only thing is, if this really can't get Omos over the way they want him to, then it's just probably not going to work. Because if I'm assuming that Brock will put him over, I don't know for sure. But I mean, usually my only criteria for this is that I think Brock will put him over if that's what they want to do. But my only criteria is that usually when Brock works with people who are bigger than him, the matches never turn out great because he usually either squashes them or he destroys their momentum. And number 2, if they want, I don't expect much from Omos to begin with, but if this can't really help get Omos at least behind at least most of the fans where they want him to get, then it's probably not gonna work long term. So
I think the one thing WrestleMania, I mean, obviously we still got time. We haven't. And it's funny because Malik knows me. I never was this type of person. Back the last 2 years, we haven't had any celebrity matches announced yet. And Malik knows me. I was never big on celebrity matches, but the last 2 years has really changed my perception. Like
the celebrity matches this year, from what I saw.
The Bad Bunny match 2 years ago, and I don't know what Alan's thinking, but that Johnny Knoxville Sami Zayn match was amazing. Come on, man! You telling me? When we man came under the ring and body slammed Sami Zayn, that wasn't cool. That was a moment.
Oh, well, I don't want to talk about it.
The rumor matches that I saw, and a lot of people, I saw the rumors that there were a lot of people upset about the WrestleMania card because some people are getting left off, and the card is going to be shorter. So there's no celebrity matches from what I saw. Obviously we know Cody and Roman, big main event. Sammy and the Usos versus KO, and KO and Sammy versus the Usos. Logan Paul, Seth Rollins,
Charlotte and Rhea, Bianca and Asuka,
Brock and Omos, Bobby and Wyatt, and then Austin Theory and Cena. I said Austin Theory and Cena, right? That was another one. Austin Theory,
but that's only one. That's only
Gunther, Drew, and Sheamus in the triple threat.
Oh God, yes, that's gonna be amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Of the 2 women's matches, I'm really looking forward to Bianca and Asuka.
I'm looking forward to both. Honestly, as long as the right people win.
It's hard for me to. I don't know, man. It's hard for me to get excited for a Charlotte Flair match.
I don't know why. I mean, Charlotte Flair is great. She's great in the ring.
When's the last time? Here's the thing. I look at Charlotte to a lesser degree how I look at Ronda. Who's the last person Charlotte legitimately elevated?
I mean, in a while. I mean, she took a lot of last year off, so it's been a while. But I mean, this could be the start of.
I'm not talking about last year, I'm talking about in general.
I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, maybe.
For example. All right. Who are the biggest? Like, let's look at Becky, for instance.
Maybe Becky. I said maybe Becky Lynch.
But even then, that's up for debate. Becky might be the only person Charlotte ever elevated, and even then, Becky got over on her own. For example, Becky helped elevate Bianca. She's been helping to elevate Damage Control. So, but look at Charlotte. Who is she really elevated yet? I don't see it. And like Malik can vouch for this. I was at work, so I didn't see it live. I didn't even know Charlotte came back. He sent me the post of Charlotte holding up the title. I said, "Oh my, again!" Like,
I wanted to get it off Ronda. I mean,
I wanted it off Ronda.
I would say she helped elevate Becky because she put her over in that last woman standing match, which also helped put Becky up to as a great champion. Because not only was that match great, but if Becky had lost that match to Charlotte, that could have been Becky could have lost a lot of steam in that one too because it was the last woman standing match. So that helped put Charlotte to the top. Becky.
Becky is literally the only woman I think Charlotte's ever elevated.
I mean, Rhea could be the start. I mean, if Rhea beats Charlotte at WrestleMania, this is the start of a big Rhea push.
That's fair. But at the same time, I'll say this: Rhea shouldn't have lost to Charlotte 3 years ago.
She shouldn't have. Yeah, this is why she needs to be there at WrestleMania. So
and here's the worst part about Charlotte winning the NXT title from Rhea: she didn't put anybody over.
Yeah, because
Io pinned Rhea in that match. She didn't pin Charlotte, so you pretty much had Charlotte win the title for no reason.
I think this is the start. I mean, Rhea beats Charlotte, which is much needed. I think Rhea and Asuka both need to win at WrestleMania. Period. Like they both need to win their matches at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to be the start for both of them getting a big push.
Here's my question: what do you think they're going to do with Becky and Bayley at WrestleMania? I mean, my prediction: I think they're going to do a 6-woman tag. It's going to be Becky, Lita, and Trish Stratus versus Damage Control. What do you think?
See, I've heard that as well, but I've also heard that Dakota and Io are supposed to face Ronda and Shayna for the titles at WrestleMania. So
God help me. God help me.
If they do that match, they'll probably just do Becky and Bayley 1-on-1 in some type of stipulation match. So
which I'm fine with. I'm fine with that as well. But you know me, Malik. I don't like Ronda. I don't. And there's nothing
they put the tag titles on Ronda and Shayna.
And there's nothing you can do to make me like her. Clearly, I don't like. First off, I don't like how once Ronda started getting booed, she attacked the fans, talking about wrestling fake and all that stuff. So all right. My whole thing, all right, she loses at WrestleMania 35. She only came back because she had to honor her contract. She didn't want to come back. I mean, the first promo she says, "I want to be here," and this is personal gripe, and I admit the fact that Sasha was supposed to win the Rumble last year and face Charlotte at WrestleMania, and then because they found out Ronda's coming back, Ronda gets that moment. Ronda and Charlotte have a trash match, have a bad match at WrestleMania, have a better match the next month, but still. Then what happens after that? The feud with Liv Morgan, which I was happy for Liv, but that did nothing for her. I think losing the title and what she done with her character is better for her to win the title. And then, of course, the match with Shotzi. Ronda's another one. They brought Ronda in, and yet no one's ever benefited from feuding with her.
Besides Becky, really.
And even then, Becky, you can say Becky, but no, because they had to force Charlotte into it. So the feud was never Becky versus Ronda, which everyone wanted.
But she still pinned Ronda at WrestleMania, though. So she was the one that she was the first woman to ever pin Ronda in WWE. So
yet for some reason they don't have Ronda go after Becky last year. Come on now, that made no sense.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not capitalizing on Becky versus Ronda. I mean,
I thought
they were going to do it this year for sure, but I mean, I guess they don't see nothing in it no more, which kind of.
I honestly don't either. In my opinion, it's beneath Becky. Becky deserves something better than that. What made the match seem interesting back at WrestleMania 35 isn't there anymore. And I'll be honest, Becky doesn't need Ronda and Shayna holding her back. Like, that's just my opinion. You could do way better with Becky than having her face Ronda or Shayna, in my opinion. Becky would deserve much better after that. And that's saying something because it feels like Ronda and I've felt this way since she first came back. Her performances from her first run are not the same. It's like Ronda doesn't have the drive she had the first time. Like, for example, WrestleMania 34, that mixed tag match, she looked great. She somehow got a good match out of Nia Jax at Money in the Bank. And I'm like, okay, Ronda's actually good, but once the crowd turned on her, it's like she stopped caring. She stopped trying. And low-key, that's low-key a problem Ronda has in real life as well, because as soon as she lost in the UFC, she was out of there. So, I mean, she loses to Holly Holmes. Yep. Holly Holm gets destroyed by Amanda Nunes, and she doesn't. And she left UFC. Comes to WWE, and she expects all the pageantry and everything handed to her. She doesn't get it, and now because the crowd booed her, now wrestling's fake. She attacks the crowd, and then instead of trying to prove how good you are, you bring everybody down. Like, I'm watching like her match with Shotzi at Survivor Series, which is one of the worst matches of the year. That apron botch. And like Malik likes Ronda, which I mean, I'm not knocking you for what you like, but she's not good.
She is good.
She isn't.
She is, because she's already proven that she was good before in her first run. She just didn't have a good second run. Her second run was definitely not as good as her first one.
And what did Janet Jackson say? What have you done for me lately?
That's why I said her second run isn't good, but this doesn't mean that she's not good, because she's already proven that she can do something. So she's already proven to me, like if Logan Paul were to have a bad match at WrestleMania against Seth Rollins, nobody's going to sit here and tell me that Logan Paul isn't good, because he's already proven to me that he's good in the ring.
Here's the difference. Logan Paul constantly improves and constantly shows out. I might not like the guy personally, but he constantly shows. People might hate me. His buckshot lariat looks almost better than Kenny Omega's. So
Heyman Page, Adam Page.
Oh yeah, Heyman Page. I'm sorry. So at least with Paul, he constantly is improving. Ronda's the opposite. Ronda's the opposite. She's not improving. She's literally her performance getting worse and worse.
No, that's true. Like I said, she didn't have a good second run, but I mean, with people like Ronda and people like Logan, people want them to fail. That's the point. They don't want them to succeed and want them to be great. So they critique anything they do bad because they expect them to do bad things. When they do good things, though, people don't want to talk about the good things they do, and they want to praise the good things they do because they don't like them, so they're not supposed to do anything good. So if Logan Paul were to have that one bad match at WrestleMania, people are going to critique him and criticize him for that bad match because they don't like Logan Paul at all. And yes, Ronda Rousey didn't have a good run at SmackDown at all, but we're not going to act like she didn't have a good first run and she wouldn't put on good matches with plenty of people during the first run. She gave Nia Jax her two best matches in WWE, probably. She had a great debut match at WrestleMania 34. He had a great match against Sasha Banks, great match against Charlotte at WrestleMania. The main event at WrestleMania 35 wasn't terrible either. So she had a great first run during the first time. Just her second run wasn't better. And her second run was supposed to be better than her first one because you're supposed to elevate, you're supposed to get better when you come back and proceed. And that was the problem, the issue with Ronda. But
here's my thing. How can you look at a woman like Liv Morgan, for instance, who was super over, had a feud with Ronda, had the crowd pretty much turn on Ronda, Gray wasn't playing Ronda fault because of the booking. Yet after the feud with Ronda, she's literally done better. Literally, the crowd's more behind her again. Her character work is way better. Her in-ring work is way better. It's like she wins the title. Now, once again, it was bad booking. I admit that, especially with SummerSlam. But yet, after she got away from Ronda in the title, she's done and looked better.
She's not really done nothing though. Like she hasn't been involved in any stories or any feuds since then. Like she's just there.
Now here's my response to that. Okay, so this is the title Raw Extreme Rules. They had the gauntlet match in which she was the best performer in that match. Yeah. I think she had you said what?
For sure. She had a great performance in the Rumble too. She had a great performance.
And she had what happened? I think it was like she had a no disqualification match. I think Sonya or someone looked great in that match. She, along with Rhea, was an Iron Woman performance in the Rumble. They literally both went 1 and 2 to the point where I believe for a second maybe Liv might win it, even though I picked Rhea to win. Right. So, and then in the chamber match, she looked good in the chamber match. It took 3 women to eliminate her. So to say so I'm gonna ask you this. So I can give you a couple moments of Liv looking good or great after the Ronda feud. What's some good moments Ronda's had since after the Liv feud?
Ronda hasn't done anything good the entire year last year, but the main issue with Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey is that nobody is going to believe that Liv Morgan can beat Ronda. So that was the biggest downfall they could have, because you had her cash in Money in the Bank, be a roll up, which was cool. But then you booked the rematch at SummerSlam. Well, Liv's character isn't her character that she is now. And we were at SummerSlam and we both said that, all right, we have Ronda, we have Liv winning this match, but we both said that we don't think she beat Ronda straight up. So how are they going to do it? Well, they had Liv tap out before the 1, 2, 3, which was terrible for Liv Morgan because she quit before she even got pinned. That's why the fans turned on her, because they saw her tap out and submit. And that's why she lost the match at Extreme Rules, because they're not going to have Liv beat Ronda.
And I said straight up at SummerSlam.
I told you this. If they believed in Liv to be a top champion, she would have beat Ronda straight up. But they obviously didn't see it.
And yet, I think, and I believe with the character she has now, if Ronda wasn't champion, she could get another one with the title. I think it'd be better for her.
And it could be. But, I mean, the character she has now could have been the character that she could have portrayed the first time when she faced. This is the character that she needed to face Ronda when she was facing Ronda. Because the character that she had then, nobody really was into what she was doing like that. And nobody saw her beating Ronda straight up, which was the main issue the entire time.
Here's a counter argument. If it wasn't for her losing to Ronda, she wouldn't have the character she has now.
Exactly. That's why losing to Ronda absolutely benefited her. But
that's what I said.
If they would have if they wanted to push her as a top champion, she would have beat Ronda straight up. That's the point, though. That would have helped elevate Liv Morgan because she's Ronda Rousey. So that would help elevate Liv to the top. It's just a lot of people just didn't believe that somebody like Liv's character, which was, like I said, it wasn't her fault because she had won Money in the Bank. They should have pushed her as the Money in the Bank instead of having her cash in the day of. They should have pushed her with the briefcase, see what she could do with the briefcase, to see if she kind of get over. Because if you look at all the women superstars who won Money in the Bank, they've all cashed in either, besides Carmella, they've all either cashed in the same night or cashed in the night afterwards. So nobody's ever had a longevity run as Money in the Bank. This was the perfect time to build up Liv Morgan's character with the briefcase to push her and see when she's ready. Because you could have had her have Money in the Bank and could have had Ronda drop the title to anybody before Liv cashed in. And she could have cashed in on somebody else and took the title from somebody else except for Ronda Rousey. It's just at that time, nobody was going to believe that Liv could be Ronda Rousey straight up clean in the ring, because Liv just isn't as on the longevity believability as a Ronda Rousey. So it made bad stuff for Liv. It put Liv in a bad position that she shouldn't have been put in. And her stuff after the whole Ronda feud has been improving, which could maybe lead to her maybe getting another title opportunity that she could deserve, to prove that, hey, I now deserve to be the champion again. I'm going to prove that I had that they kind of messed up. Because even Liv said at SummerSlam that she hated the way that the match was booked, because she knew that the fans weren't going to like it, because she has to tap before the 1, 2, 3, and the fans obviously are going to see that, and they're going to be like, oh, well, she kind of gave up before the 1, 2, 3. That's just kind of.
I think he said a big reason why the match was built, even though it was still terrible, but one of the times I think Triple H did mess up, is I think they said the match got cut for time. Like, the match only barely lasted 6 minutes. I think they said the match was supposed to last longer. And I said in a TikTok video, I said that if you were going to have a situation where, like, Liv won but not make her look bad, you could have easily had a situation where she rolls Ronda up, but she passes out while doing it. So she still gets the win, but Ronda can have a great, well, she passed out, but she still had Ronda pinned. That way, I think if that happened, Liv would have got booed, because technically Liv didn't give up. She really passed out, but let's say she rolls Ronda back as she passes out, she still wins the match. And I even said this, and I tweeted this, it's the only time I think Liv actually looked good as champion was Clash at the Castle against Shayna, where she actually pulled out a win and looked good doing it. She didn't beat Shayna via roll-up. She beat her decisively. And that was one of the only time, I even tweeted, that's how Liv should be booked.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and head off here. Thank you guys for coming through, chatting some old school wrestling and newer school wrestling, kind of a mixture of both. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, and I'll be back for some more lives, some more Jeopardies and everything got planned for you guys in the future. So make sure you guys should be on the look out for that. And until next time, you guys be safe.
Peace out.